Good morning. Thanks for clicking on the video. I was just checking my calendar to see what the next milestones are really in the aviary. There's a lot going on. So obviously I am sitting where the mannequin cages was, which is now back in the bird room. And I learned something this week, kind of interesting. So the baby firefinches are doing great, and they've learned to go in and out of the warming area. And so I had an opportunity to catch them in there. And unfortunately, their joint was too well developed to be able to ring them properly, even with the size up. But I did mark them with the elastic rings, so they're now marked as individuals. But in the process of catching them in the cage, I realized something. First of all, they're babies and they don't know really about bars and whatnot, and they just kind of try to get away, and they're tiny and they can get their head through the gap between the bars, and then they panic, and I panic, sort of try not to panic. And what I realized with the mannequins in the cages, and they had a nest and they were sitting on eggs, and I was just about to open the access to the rest of the aviary, thinking, okay, great, now you can come and go and you'll defend this space, right? Duh, what if one of the babies gets in the space? Then what? So I guess I considered that they wouldn't come out of the space and then defend. That was the experiment. But what if somebody ends up in there? And I have Goldbreast, that's what I was checking. Goldbreast, they're fledging the beginning of the following week. And they're even more tiny and less experienced. And I feel like I kind of got lucky in terms of the timing, that I feel like something bad could happen, don't you think? So, I moved the mannequins back in the basement, disassembled the cage. Now I have one of my seating areas back again. And when the Goldbreast fledge, I think it's going to be safer. So there's that. The baby firefinches are feeding on the millet sprays. They haven't really figured out the food dishes so much, but Mom and Dad are kind of discouraging them. They're at that stage. They're still feeding, and they will for, let's just see. Yeah, so they will be independent May 22nd. So the end of next week, they should be independent. Then the Goldbreast fledge. And then beginning of June-ish, the Goldbreast should be independent. And then we'll see what, so I'll come back to mannequins in a second. And then middle of July, the firefinches should be through their molt. I think I have 2 males for sure, because they've been trying to sing. And I know they're both different because they're ringed now. So there's that. Okay. All right, guys. Who wants bugs? Who wants bugs? You can hear that? Come on, come get bugs. Oh, that reminds me. I forgot to mention that the firefinch parents, the day that the babies left the nest, They started building a nest back where the first dummy nest was, if you remember that. Over in that cavity right there. And there was a branch sticking out of that. Sticking out of that branch of the tree that was overhanging that. So I didn't want them to go to nest right away for their second clutch, and so I pulled the branch out of there, and then I kind of coerced them back into the other corner in a different nest, just kind of for curiosity. And they took to that, and I am sure that they are sitting on a second clutch, and they're going to get replaced with dummy eggs because I need to be careful not to end up with more birds than I can really take care of properly. The firefinches were going to go into a second clutch anyway, regardless, but it doesn't help that, they have all this live food to kind of encourage that. So that can be hard to manage. And also, I will say, another problem is that here's all this rich food and the parrot finches get fat. They overeat. And it's really hard. You can't ration their food while still providing the parents the food for the babies. So that gets resolved when all the breeding is done, which will be, in another month or so. And then they can go back on a less rich diet. You know what else happened this week? Wasps and bees. So, I'm sitting in here, as I frequently am when I have time, and there's a wasp buzzing around, and this thing is fortified. I was so upset, and I thought, anyway, they were after the egg food. So I caught that one because it was trying to feed on the egg food. I caught it. I'm like, well, follow me in. It was on, I don't know. And then there's another one. And another one. So I'm prowling around everywhere, and I figure it's up at the eave because I know how this thing is built. I built it. And there's no way. Well, anyway, here's what happens. Yes, there is a way. And I sat out there for a long time because I kind of thought that was where, but I explored, I looked all over the place. And I sat out there and looked for a long time, and sure enough, they get in up under the overhang, and they're buzzing around, and I don't know if it's because with the fan blowing air out over there, if it's sucking air in, and then that gives them the idea. I don't know. Or they smell the food in here, and I don't know, but I caught one crawling in, and I think what happens is they get in, and then they crawl along that beam, and somewhere along there, they're finding a way into the actual aviary, which I never did find. So anyway, I plugged that. However, in the process of trying to figure out where they could be getting in, I also discovered that behind the warming area, which is double walled, and then there's insulation, over time this wood dries and it shrinks and it moves a little bit, and it opened up a teeny tiny little gap, and there's bees trying to build a nest in the wall between the warming area and between the plywood and the exterior cedar. So they were not getting into the aviary itself, but they had a pretty good start on a little hive. So that was a project, and I got them to move out because I kind of harassed them, and got that sealed. So there's that. And I couldn't videotape that because some non-family friendly terminology was being used at the time. So I mentioned the mannequins were on eggs, and they had, the female had dropped a lot of eggs. and their nest was terrible. They put so much effort into it, and it was just super shallow and super tiny, and not, it was wedged in there nicely, but anyway, so they lost a lot of eggs onto the ground, onto the floor of the cage. And every one of them was infertile. So the good news is, I checked the eggs, 5 eggs in the nest, all infertile. So, so I moved them into the new area, and I will let them rest for a little bit and get comfortable in that situation, and then just think what to do about that. I'm kind of in danger of too many babies. Parrot finches have built an elaborate nest, and that's up in the top of that tree, and I'll show you some video of that. I thought this was a pretty neat clip. I think this is one of the baby male firefinches. And I thought the parrot finches were remarkably tolerant. And yeah, that's it. So there's the update for this week. It's the time of year where the fan is not running all the time, and the heaters are not running. Somebody could sing if you wanted to. This would like cue the birds singing at this point. Tristan. Of course not. Could you sing? Well, I'll just, splice in a clip to make it seem like he responds to me. What do you think about that? Okay. Thanks for clicking on the video.